Joshua Tree, California, 2019. The desert had a way of stripping you down. No city noise, no expectations, just sky and silence stretching out forever. Isla hadn't planned on staying more than a week. She had booked the cabin in a panic, needing distance from the noise in her head and the wreckage of a career that once felt like purpose. She was 31. A travel photographer who hadn't left her apartment in months. Depression had crept in quietly. Then all at once. Deadlines missed, flights canceled, a camera gathering dust on the floor. She thought maybe if she got far enough away from her life, it would stop chasing her. The desert, at least, didn't ask anything of her. She met Kai at the gas station by accident. He was arguing gently with the old cashier about the best kind of jerky and bought her a Gatorade when she almost passed out from the heat. He didn't ask what she was doing out here alone. He just smiled, offered her a ride back to her cabin, and played instrumental jazz the whole drive without saying a word. It was the quietest kindness she'd ever known. Kai lived in a trailer not far from hers, a local musician who taught guitar in town and moonlighted as a handyman. His hands were calloused, his laugh unhurried. He asked questions slowly, like he actually wanted to hear the answers. She told him bits and pieces of her life, safe parts, polished parts. He never pushed for more. But he noticed things: the way her eyes darted when someone asked too many questions, how she always checked the locks twice, the way she winced when the topic of returning home came up. They began to orbit each other. Coffee in the morning, stargazing from his pickup bed at night. He played her unfinished songs. She showed him old photographs she hadn't posted, afraid they weren't good enough anymore. He called them beautiful. She almost believed him. One night, under a sky that looked like spilled ink, Kai told her he used to have panic attacks so bad he couldn't drive. Said it took him 2 years to step into the grocery store without rehearsing how he'd leave if it got too loud. The world doesn't always make space for soft people, he said, but the desert does. She cried, not loudly, just enough for her body to finally loosen. They weren't perfect. She had days she didn't speak, didn't move. He had nights where he played the same chord progression for hours, lost inside his own looping mind. But they found rhythm in the stillness, in shared silence, in cooking eggs at midnight and watching the sunrise as if it were a show just for them. Isla began to pick up her camera again, not to post, not to prove anything, but to remember. She photographed Kai's hands, the way he looked when he thought no one was watching, the blue-orange hue of the desert just before dusk. She started sleeping through the night. She stopped apologizing for her pauses. By the time she was meant to leave, she'd already decided she wouldn't. Not yet, maybe not ever. Now, 3 years later, their small home sits beneath the same endless sky. Her photographs hang in a local gallery. His guitar echoes from the porch most evenings. The world is still chaotic beyond the sand and sagebrush. But they've built something still, something quiet. Because some love stories don't begin with sparks. They begin with silence. And the people who stay until you remember your own name.
The quiet between heartbeats. Edinburgh, Scotland, autumn of 2017. The city wore the season like a well-loved sweater. Soft light, golden leaves, and the smell of old stone and burnt sugar drifting from the bakeries on Grassmarket Mirror. Arrived on a one-way ticket from Melbourne carrying a broken engagement ring, 3 sketchbooks, and the silence she'd been hiding inside for months. She was 28, a once promising illustrator, now paralyzed by her own mind. Anxiety, the doctors called it panic disorder. It had stolen more than her appetite or her sleep. It had taken her voice, her confidence, the spark that once lit every corner of her work. She came to Scotland, hoping the quiet might heal her. She found a flat tucked above a flower shop run by an old woman who reminded her to breathe and gave her free tea when she looked pale. Days passed in a blur of sketching faces she'd never meet, drinking black coffee and watching the rain draw rivers across her window pane. Then there was Callum. He lived across the alley in a flat with music always playing and windows never closed. The first time she saw him, he was sitting in the window seat, guitar resting on his knee, eyes closed like he could hear something no one else could. He caught her watching, he didn't wave, just smiled, slow and easy, like he had time. They didn't speak for weeks, just passed one another on stairwells and cobblestones, two ghosts sharing the same city. One rainy Tuesday, the flower shop flooded and Mira helped carry buckets of water up from the basement. Her hands were shaking from the cold when Callum appeared with towels and whiskey. "You look like you haven't been warm in years," he joked. She laughed, actually laughed. That night, they sat on her windowsill watching the street lights blink alive. He told her he was a music therapist. He'd once lost someone to a silence like hers. Mira didn't know how to answer that, so she offered a sketchbook, flip into a page of a man on a windowsill, eyes closed, guitar in hand. From then on, they lived between their windows, messages scribbled on napkins, mugs passed across alley balconies, secrets whispered beneath shared umbrellas. Mira learned that Callum had survived a deep depression after his mother's passing. He spoke openly, not dramatically, about how healing wasn't a straight line. It's just one more breath than another. He asked if he could write music to her drawings. She said yes, though her hands trembled when she handed over the pages. For the first time in years, she felt part of something. But progress came in ripples, not waves. One night, after a panic attack left her curled on the kitchen floor, Mira shut him out, turned off her phone, ignored the knocks on her door, convinced she was too much, too broken. He didn't leave. Instead, he sat in the alley with his guitar, playing the softest song she'd ever heard. She listened through the window, tears running down her cheeks, and in the morning, she let him in. Their love didn't explode, it unfolded. He never asked her to be different, and she never tried to fix his sadness, only offered space for it to rest. By spring, Mira had her first gallery showing in years. The centerpiece was a painting of two windows facing each other, the sky between them lit with music notes and pencil lines. Callum stood beside her, his fingers laced with hers, steady and quiet. Now, years later, they still live in those same flats. Though the alley has long since faded into memory, the flower shop is gone, but the windows remain. She still sketches, he still plays, and in the quiet between heartbeats, they remind each other how far they've come. Because some love stories don't need fireworks. They just need someone who stays when the music fades.
Savannah, Georgia, 2002. The air in July was thick with memory. Spanish moss swayed from the oaks like old ghosts, and the cicadas hummed in time with the ache in Violet's chest. She had come to Savannah to disappear. A sabbatical from New York, from deadlines, from the relationship that shattered like stained glass 2 weeks before the wedding. 34, single and burnt out, she moved into her grandmother's empty house with nothing but a suitcase and a novel she couldn't finish. She told herself she wasn't running, but every morning the mirror said otherwise. The town felt stuck in time, cobblestone streets, lantern-lit porches. The smell of magnolia violet wandered it like a woman between lives, silent, small, forgetting who she used to be. And then she met Everett. He was fixing a broken fountain in Forsyth Park when she first noticed him, sleeves rolled to the elbows, humming. Ray Charles like it was prayer. He caught her watching, nodded once, then went back to the pipe. She passed him again 2 days later, this time at the bakery. He ordered coffee like he was making peace with the day, slow and deliberate. When he glanced at her, his eyes held that same kind of patience. Their first conversation was about music. Their second, about insomnia. By the third, they were sitting under the shade of a cafe awning as the rain rolled in, and she told him she hadn't slept through the night in 8 months. Everett had the kind of calm that made silence feel like safety. He told her he used to be a school counselor before the panic attacks started, said he'd moved to Savannah for the quiet and maybe a chance to rebuild. They didn't call it love at first, just presence, two people choosing not to be alone in the same city. They explored antique shops, left sticky notes in used books, watched thunderstorms from opposite ends of the same porch. Violet started writing again, half sentences at first, then entire chapters. He never asked to read them, just brought her tea when the lights stayed on past midnight. He had his shadows. There were days Everett wouldn't answer the door, his anxiety curling around him like fog. Violet learned to wait, to leave food without knocking, to speak only when his eyes found hers again. In return, he learned not to flinch when she cried over nothing or everything. She told him about the year she lost herself, the pills that numbed too much, the days she forgot to eat. He never tried to fix her. He just stayed. One evening in late September, she read him the final chapter of her novel. Her voice shook, but he listened like it was scripture. When she finished, there was a long pause. "It's about us, isn't it?" he asked softly. "No," she said, "it's about who we're still becoming." That fall, they planted a garden behind the house, lavender, tomatoes, and wildflowers that refused to grow in straight lines. She dedicated her book to the man who reminded me the stars don't disappear just because you close your eyes. Years later, their porch still smells of jasmine. Her novels line the shelves of the local bookstore. His tools sit under the sink, next to a folded letter she once wrote but never gave him, about second chances and soft love, and how sometimes healing comes not with fireworks but with the sound of someone breathing beside you. And every July, when the cicadas return, Violet lies beside him and whispers, "Do you hear that? Even the stars are listening."